Tonight on Reporting Scotland, bringing the housing stock up to date. Plans by the country's biggest council landlord to demolish its high-rise flats.
I had no idea I was institutionalised until I came here to this wonderful back and front door with a garden.
Also on the programme, as the investigation continues into the Cameron House hotel fire, the families of the two men killed pay tribute. Tackling bad behaviour on our trains. Now staff are to be offered body cameras to record what's happening.
Long loose jackets, white frill trousers with frill cuffs.
In 1970, this was regarded as the height of fashion. Now this is the latest uniform for our Commonwealth Games athletes.
That was at the museum.
Aye, that was just outside of our...
And we look at the scheme that's helping struggling families go on holiday. Good evening. Scotland's biggest council landlord is planning to knock down all its high-rise flats. North Lanarkshire Council says it wants to demolish all 48 of its tower blocks over the next 20 years and build houses to replace them. The council stresses the move isn't for safety reasons, but some residents say they'll be sad to leave. Here's our local government correspondent, Jamie McIver.
There's some view today, aren't there? It's dead clear.
Elsie Power has lived on the 10th floor of a high-rise block for 25 years. She loves her home, but today the council said all the local blocks could eventually come down.
On our landing we have good neighbours, and that's the main thing. And plus they're warm houses. You know, I wouldn't have liked to stay in the back and front door. I've never ever fancied it. I love my flat.
In Motherwell alone, there are more than 20 tower blocks, and some of the residents have been telling me how they're very happy and settled here.
I want to change it.
Just
Got a new wife.
Right. You'd be sorry when they come down?
Well, we didn't before, Raim. Don't worry about that, Paul.
Hope you're settled in your new house. You know, it's all...
Jim Leonard would disagree. He recently moved out of a high-rise and into a bungalow.
I had no idea I was institutionalised until I came here to this wonderful back and front door with a garden. I can step out into my car. I've got neighbours I can speak over the fence to.
The council stresses its tower blocks are all perfectly safe. This is part of a bigger plan to regenerate town centres.
We've put a lot of investment and work in our towers, but we're at the point where we've reached our limit in terms of what we can do. We want to build, and we're ambitious to build, houses that are energy efficient, that are adaptable, and that are accessible to our communities.
Of course, tower block demolitions happen regularly. But the transformational scale of the latest plan makes it different. This expert on tower blocks across the world is sorry. He thinks they should have a future in Scotland.
Now, you know, the kind of trendy fashion for modern brutalism and so on, that's all changing in London. But we seem to be kind of living out the kind of, in a way, the fag end of this, you know, the previous generation, the Prince Charles generation of kind of the big blocks are horrible and so on.
A consultation with the Power family and 4,000 other households will begin in the new year. For the second time in living memory, the whole skyscape of part of Scotland could change out of all recognition. Jamie McIver, Reporting Scotland, North Lanarkshire.
The families of the two men killed in the fire at Cameron House Hotel on Loch Lomond have spoken of their loss. Meanwhile, the investigation into the cause of the blaze is continuing. And our reporter Aileen Clark is there for us tonight. Aileen, today we heard tributes to Simon Midgley and Richard Dyson.
That's right. Simon Midgley, who was 32, lived with his partner, 38-year-old Richard Dyson in North London. Now, Richard's family have been in touch with their local church in Harrogate, and they've spoken of their devastation at the loss of their son, and they've asked the congregation to pray for them at the Hope Church there. But here today, Simon's mother has paid her own tribute. Amongst the flowers left over there at the gates of Cameron House is one bouquet from Simon's mum. Now, on the note that she wrote on that bouquet, and that must have been an incredibly difficult note for her to write. Here's what she says: "To my wonderful son Simon and soulmate Richard, no words. Heartbroken forever. love you both so much, you will never be forgotten. And she goes on to say how they were two of the best. Now, Simon was a freelance writer. He'd written articles for the Evening Standard, amongst other newspapers. Today, the former Chancellor, George Osborne, who's the editor there, spoke of the sadness at the paper of his loss and how they would miss his adventurous spirit. And the men had a Scottish neighbour in London, and he has started a giving page, a Just Giving page on Facebook. And he talks of how he really valued the friendship and their companionship of these two men. And he too speaks of how great their loss is.
And Aileen, the investigation into the cause of the fire continues.
That's right, very much here today. That joint police and fire investigation goes on. Now, we have found out that there was no sprinkler system here at Cameron House, but the hotel today has issued a statement saying that all the hotel had complied fully with all the relevant fire and safety regulations, and its fire safety certification is complete and up to date, and that they are cooperating fully with that investigation. But of course, you'll have seen from the pictures at the hotel yesterday all the twisted metal that you see there in the windows, all the twisted timbers there. What that means is that can be potentially a very dangerous site for investigation. So of course that has to be made absolutely safe before investigators can really get in there and look for all the clues that they would like to really try and pin down what the cause of this fire was.
Aileen, thank you. Rail staff are to be offered body cameras in order to tackle unruly behaviour on trains. ScotRail says that a trial of the CCTV cameras reduced bad behaviour among passengers. Their staff will be encouraged to wear the camera, but the company says it won't be compulsory. Graham Stewart reports.
Antisocial behaviour is just part of the job if you work on Scotland's trains, but now staff have technology on their side, with the option of wearing a clip-on CCTV camera.
Train staff can activate these cameras at the touch of a button, recording up to 8 hours of material. The hope is it will help deter antisocial behaviour and gather crucial evidence when it does occur.
The cameras will only capture footage when they're activated by a member of staff, and the material is downloaded to a secure site, which means that wearers of the devices have no access to the footage.
It's a little strange to know that you're being filmed, but at the same time, if it makes the staff feel more safe, then I suppose it's worth it.
Especially if it's late at night, it's very good for security. I mean, there isn't an awful lot of trains that are very late at night to come to Dunbar, but often you'll get some kind of noisy, evenings out.
I think it's a great idea, particularly on trains where, you haven't got the police close by, or and things can happen that are quite challenging sometimes.
ScotRail says that during a recent trial of the cameras there was a fall in antisocial behaviour.
What we found is that customer behaviour is modified when they know that these body-worn cameras are in use, and it's enabled us to successfully prosecute a number of people to create an even safer network for Scotland.
We have actually seen a vast increase in antisocial behaviour activity, as well as assaults on frontline staff, as well as members of the public being assaulted. So if the body cameras do anything, they'll actually send a deterrent.
ScotRail insists antisocial behaviour's declined over the past year, but staff are nonetheless being encouraged to wear the cameras in the hope that it will lead to a safer railway. Graham Stewart reporting Scotland on the 10:14 to Dunbar.
The Finance Secretary has warned that local councils face tough choices as they try to protect services within a tight budget settlement set out by the Scottish Government. But Derek Mackay told MSPs that the deal was fair and stressed that councils could raise extra cash by increasing council tax. This from our political editor, Brian Taylor.
Council services, your schools, your bins, your social care, perhaps your home, all funded by local authorities who are warning of cuts ahead. Derek Mackay, the Finance Secretary, says he has topped up a tight budget from the UK Government with a tax rise while protecting the lowest paid. He acknowledges the revenue deal for councils is flat cash. That's a cut in real terms after inflation. Conservative MSP Graham Simpson challenged the Minister over the impact of that.
I'm a little bit confused, I must be honest. Is it your position that no council will have to make any cuts?
Will local authorities have to continue to make efficiencies? Yes, they will. Mr Simpson will want to use some pejorative language, but I do think it's a fair settlement. Will it require tough choices? Of course it will. Of course it will. We've had tough choices to make in government as well. But essentially, I think it's a good deal for local government.
Mr Mackay said local authorities could raise council tax by 3%, generating £77 million, which would then add up to a real terms budget increase. Tories say that could also add to the financial pressure on families. And things could get more challenging still. The Fiscal Commission analyses Scotland's economy, and the picture's sluggish.
The things which have influenced our judgment are several years of subdued growth in the Scottish economy and indeed in the UK economy. And that period of slow growth has now been so extended that we have taken a view that it's sensible to expect it, sadly, to continue.
Sharp exchanges in the Commons too.
Conservatives back you, SNP tax you.
The Prime Minister said the Scottish tax increases were unnecessary as the cash could be found from savings. But that's disputed by the SNP, who insist they're squeezing every penny out of available funds. Brian Taylor, reporting Scotland.
A 20-year-old man has been killed after his motorbike was involved in a collision with a bin lorry in Perth. It happened on Dunkeld Road near St Catherine's Retail Park this morning. The road has been closed while accident investigation work is carried out. The man's family has been informed. It's just after 20 to 7. A reminder now of tonight's top story. Plans by the country's biggest council landlord to demolish all of its high-rise flats. And still to come, we look at the scheme that's helping struggling families go on holiday. Police are searching a remote area of land near the East Ayrshire village of Moscow. They say it's part of an ongoing investigation and aren't giving out more details. Locals say there's been a heavy police presence in the area for about 2 weeks. Katie Hunter reports.
Well, I've been here much of the day and various police cars, both marked and unmarked, have been passing up and down this road. Now, we're not allowed to film past this police van here, but we understand that further down the road there is a police incident unit and other police vehicles. Members of the public passing this point have to sign in and out with a police officer. That includes farmers going to check on their animals and people visiting a nearby country club. Well, earlier I spoke to one local man who'd been allowed through the cordon.
I have some sheep up there and obviously I have to go up and check them, and he signed the book to go up by, and there was one day we went up there, en route up towards Cowans Law, there was a police incident lorry, an articulated lorry with generators and stuff, and 2 police vans with a large search team, about 30 numbers, and obviously they're carrying out a search of some description, but nobody's not too sure what's going on.
Well, Police Scotland will only tell us that this area of land is being searched under warrant as part of an ongoing investigation. We understand police officers have been here for around 2 weeks, but Police Scotland won't say how much longer they expect this search to last.
Katie Hunter there. The Transport Minister, Humza Yousaf, has said he intends to scrap future tendering processes for Hebridean and Clyde ferry services. He said the Scottish Government would prefer to award the next contract to the publicly owned operator CalMac without a competition. But he said further work was required to make sure the plan complies with EU state aid rules. The next contract isn't due to be awarded until 2024, by which time the UK is expected to have left the EU. For a victim of rape, the time immediately after the attack is often the most important in terms of gathering evidence. But how a victim is treated by the NHS and the police can depend on where you live. Well, now improvements have been announced to make it more consistent across the country. Our Home Affairs correspondent, Rival Alderson, can tell us more.
Good evening, Rape Crisis Scotland.
This call centre in Glasgow offers advice and support for victims of rape and sexual assault.
Would it maybe help if I tell you a bit about what we do and what we can offer?
If those victims report the incident to police, they're required to be examined, and the government's been concerned that standards of evidence gathering haven't been the same across Scotland.
Catherine, hello.
Today, ministers announced more support for men and women who've been attacked, giving them more control over the investigation process.
The way in which some of our health boards are meeting their healthcare needs has not been as consistent as we would like to see. And that's why I'm determined to make sure that we have a much more consistent approach as to how both our justice system and also our health service responds to their care needs, being much more person-centred and trauma-informed. And in doing that, making sure that we're meeting the needs of these victims much more effectively.
In the Archway Centre in Glasgow, sexual assault victims receive medical treatment and counselling as they provide evidence to police. It's a facility regarded as helping to persuade them to come forward. But health officials say different approaches will have to be adopted in other parts of the country to meet local demands, while still satisfying the new national standards.
A bespoke service, absolutely. We don't want people to have to travel far. We want people to be seen and examined, and the standard says that should be within 3 hours of request. And we want them to have that health and medical care. They may need aftercare and emotional support, and they may also wish then to take forward a police prosecution.
The Rape Crisis Charity has welcomed the new national standards, which it says will improve evidence gathering whilst also looking after the needs of victims.
What we're trying to look at are what are somebody's needs immediately after a rape or sexual assault, not only gathering forensic evidence, but what are their health needs, what are their support needs and their care needs. And if implemented, I think these standards could make a huge difference to people's experience of services and how they're cared for immediately after the trauma of rape.
In recent years, the number of serious sexual assaults being reported has continued to rise. The government believes this will continue as victims understand they'll be treated with care as they provide evidence. Revel Alderson reporting, Scotland.
Scotland will be the first team to parade at the opening ceremony of the 2018 Gold Coast Games. That's because they held the Games last time. And today we got the first look at what they'll wear on that day this coming April. It's been modelled by the new golden couple of Scottish athletics. And as Rona McLeod reports, the parade uniform has been an important and interesting piece of kit throughout the years.
The girls wearing the specially designed Commonwealth top. Scotland next. Another shade of blue blazer.
It's been a serious business dressing Team Scotland over the years. And on this freezing cold December day, the Gold Coast uniform is about to emerge from under wraps.
OK, your stance.
Photographer Alistair Devine is taking the official team portraits with athletes Andrew Butchart and Lindsay Sharp.
Everyone's really excited to see what it's like each cycle. Opening ceremony outfit makes you feel really patriotic, and people probably don't get the chance to wear a kilt that often, so it's nice to have that opportunity, especially for the girls. So I'm really excited to see how it goes down.
Hold to me.
Wearing a kilt means a lot to us Scots, and they've done such a good job. It means a lot to be wearing the kilt. It's like your uniform, it is your uniform, and everyone's so proud to represent the country, and it's so nice to wear a kilt.
The Gold Coast tartan has been woven by Perth-based House of Edgar. The women's contemporary kilts have been designed by the award-winning Siobhan Mackenzie.
I can't wait to see a sea of women come out into the parade wearing it. I'm going to be so proud. I'm only 24, so to be able to be a young woman designing for the women of Team Scotland is just such a huge honour.
Okay.
And it's no accident there's chemistry on and off camera. Olympians Sharp and Butchart have been a couple since the start of the year.
It's a good laugh, isn't it? I mean, we have fun always, so to do this and do it for the Commonwealth Games, it means a lot to us.
Yeah, I think Andrew's a lot more laid back in his approach to it. And I've definitely taken that on board. Like, I can get quite stressed out on competition days, so I've tried to be a bit more laid back and have fun, because at the end of the day that's what it's about, it's having fun.
The image of strength and unity. Team Scotland hoping they'll be dressed for success in the Gold Coast. Rona McLeod, reporting Scotland, Gleneagles.
A scheme to give respite breaks to struggling families has seen a huge increase in the numbers getting time away. Scott Spirit matches tourism providers with people who can't afford a holiday. It said offers of free hotels, travel and attractions have more than doubled this year. Maura Kinneborough reports.
That was at the museum.
Aye, that was just outside the Ballyconley Museum.
Yeah.
In work with 6 children, this family can't afford a holiday.
Here's what these.
Banana bits!
But 4 were given a weekend away in Glasgow last month.
I remember when the beds were really comfy and I didn't want to get up.
The statue again. No.
They were referred by their social worker to the Scots Spirit scheme.
Just everyday stress. It's just to get away from that just for a couple of days. But just having the 2 wee ones, it made us bond better. So we've not got the older ones and the grandkid. Do you know what I mean? It was just day 2 and my mum. It was brilliant. We had a brilliant time.
Official figures show 1 in 3 families can't afford even a small break. This year, 1,600 people were treated to a Scots Spirit trip in Scotland. That's up 67% on last year.
Hotels giving free breaks, attractions giving free entry, transport companies giving free travel. It's made a huge difference to those families we've been able to impact on. But of course, that's a tiny number compared to the actual overall problem that we find in Scotland.
The number of tourism firms donating spare capacity has more than doubled since last year.
Yes, it is about giving something back, but it's also, they see a business opportunity as well in terms of the PR associated with it.
Courtney missed out on the trip, but feels the break benefited the whole family.
I could just tell straight away, my mum was just completely stress-free. She was so much more relaxed, and so were the kids as well, though. They just seemed a lot happier. You could see when they came home, big smile on their face, we've been away, and it was yay.
It's hoped hundreds more struggling families can be given time away in 2018, the year of young people. Morag Kinneborough, reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
Now, a warning that our next item contains some pictures with flash photography. Celtic have completed the signing of the German international defender Marvin Komper. He joins the Premiership leaders in early January after signing a 2.5-year deal. He won't be able to play in Europe for Celtic this season, but says he'll bring experience to Brendan Rodgers' team.
I think it's obvious if you get a player that is 32 years old, you're looking for experience. This is what the club is getting: experience, quality in passing. I'd say my header is fine, and I speak a lot on the pitch. I try to help the guys around me.
Now, some of our top female footballers are going for their European coaching qualification in the first ever course run just for women in Scotland. It comes as the Football Association in England admits it's struggling to find a female manager for the national women's team. Keridin Itzan reports.
Just that little change direction helped us.
Is this a glimpse of football's future? With women coaching men? It's certainly a football first for Scotland.
Now that the white players receive it.
European governing body UEFA's official coaching course, but for women only.
It's something that the Scottish FA are pushing, that we try and keep players involved, which I know is something that's prevalent in the men's game. And we want to try and replicate that with the women's side.
The Scottish Football Association hopes to address a relative lack of female managers. At this year's Women's European Championship, for example, of the 16 teams taking part, only 5 were managed by women. The English FA, seeking someone to manage their national women's team, say they've plenty of candidates in the pool, but not a lot are women.
In the last calendar year, so 2017, we've seen 1,040 female attendees at our coach education courses. Previously, there was about 600 in 2016, so that's a big increase. We set ourselves a target of 10% of our total attendees in coach education being female, so we get just over 10,000, generally speaking, annually. So to get over 1,000 female attendees and hit that 10% target is excellent.
With a female figurehead like Shelley Kerr as national coach, growing the game among girls is a continuing priority.
We've just had 17 girls take part on the C licence course up here, and I think next year there's plans for a bespoke girls only B licence coach education qualification. So the support that female coaches get up here in Scotland is fantastic.
For the current Scotland manager, things are ticking along nicely. Played 3-1-3 so far on her watch. The SFA, of course, is still looking for someone to follow in Gordon Strachan's footsteps. His successor will be male, but if courses like this are a success, more female managers should feature in football's future. Keridin Itzan, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Weather now, and for those dreaming of a white Christmas, Christopher.
Fooling his money easily parted, Jackie. Let's take a look, though, anyway, shall we?
OK, shall we?
Thank you very much. This is Christmas Day. What everyone wants to know. It looks pretty wet, doesn't it? and it probably will be quite wet, quite windy at times as well. But that rain could be a bit further south, and on the northern flank of it, some cold air. So potentially for some, but we'll keep you posted on that. Today, well, the weather's been fairly non-eventful, pretty cloudy, mostly dry and fairly mild, and little change really as we head through the course of this evening and overnight. There are a line of showers across parts of the northwest, just drifting in towards the Inverness area by around about midnight. Elsewhere dry, cloudy, but the northeast will see some clear skies. So in the countryside down close to freezing, if not just under, and Aberdeen City just 3 or 4 Celsius. That's the exception rather than the rule. Tomorrow, and it's a bright start for central and northern parts of the country. In the far southwest, though, some thicker cloud, some mist and some rain arriving through the afternoon. And through the course of the afternoon, that cloud will edge its way northwards. So by mid-afternoon, pretty cloudy, a bit murky at times, a few spots of rain in the southwest from sort of Kintyre down towards Dumfriesshire. After that bright start for the central belt, the clouds thickening. But north of here, actually, a reasonable afternoon, some sunshine in store and temperatures 8-9 Celsius. 1 or 2 light showers still with us across the far north and the Northern Isles. A bit of a breeze here as well from the west. Now, the rest of the afternoon into the evening and overnight, and that wet weather in the south then starts to edge its way northwards, reaching the central belt for a time, but it tends to fizzle and fade away. And certainly as we head through towards Friday, not much in the way of rain around. In fact, a ridge of high pressure, so largely dry, and once again, really quite mild, and that means quite murky, particularly across parts of the west coast and the southwest. Best of any sunshine really towards the east and northeast, and it will be quite mild, particularly in the west, 9-10 Celsius. Saturday, well, it will be windy, particularly in the northwest, perhaps some impacts on travel as a result of that. Driest in the east. And Christmas Eve, well, mild, wet and quite windy. Not, how to say, particularly festive.
Hope springs eternal. Christopher, thank you. Now, a reminder of tonight's main news. The International Monetary Fund, one of the world's leading financial organisations, has downgraded its forecast for the UK's economic growth this year. It says the impact of the UK's decision to leave the EU had weighed heavily on the economy. Scotland's biggest council landlord is planning to knock down all its high-rise flats. North Lanarkshire Council says it wants to demolish all 48 of its tower blocks over the next 20 years and build houses to replace them. And that's Reporting Scotland. Join me if you can at 10:30. Until then, from all the team across the country, good evening.